Years ago during my CNN days, I ran into Andy Van Slyke at the airport, and he said, I got a project for you. And he goes, I want you to be the on-course announcer for the Mario Lemieux Celebrity Golf Tournament. And in this town, when Mario has an ask, the answer is always yes. It doesn't even have to be this town, anywhere in this country. Mario Lemieux says, can you come up? And I said, absolutely. A great event filled with, you would not believe, if you weren't a Hall of Famer, you were an all-star. There's Gretzky, there's Lemieux, there's Elway, there's Marino, Johnny Bench, Joe Morgan, Cordell was there, the bus was there. I mean, it was just a plethora of all-stars. And they always had a lot of really entertaining functions in the evening to take care of the players, the sponsors, and people like me that ran around with my jaw dropping because of all these superstar athletes. One night I'm in line at the Civic Arena. They were having a banquet. Kool and the Gang was playing. Fantastic group, not as good as our Tamburitzans, but they were still very popular. And I'm in line, and I hear this voice behind me say, Jerome, turn around and say hello to a fellow Croatian. And that's when I met our next inductee, and he introduced me to his lovely bride, Mary. Ralph Cindrich was a success at every level athletically, and even more so professionally. I could go on and on about Ralph, and I will in a minute, but he'll be the first to tell you his greatest accomplishment is his beautiful family. For more on that, here is his award-winning television host and producer daughter, Christina Cindrich.
Hello, everyone. I'm Christina Cindrich, and although I can't be there in person today, my heart is absolutely with all of you, especially with my dad, Ralph Cindrich, as he's inducted into the Croatian American Sports Hall of Fame. Growing up, I was in awe of the man my dad was, his dedication to his craft, his boundless energy, and the love he showed for our family were constant reminders of what it means to be great, not just in sports, but in life. He didn't just talk about hard work and integrity, he lived it. Whether it was his time on the field as an NFL linebacker or the countless hours he spent making sure his clients were treated fairly as a sports attorney, my dad has always poured his heart and soul into everything he does. But beyond his career and achievements, what makes my dad truly special is his ability to bring joy to everyone around him. He's the kind of person who can light up a room with his charisma and humor, whether he's proudly wearing a sweatshirt with his granddaughter's photos on it, or sneaking a finger into a birthday cake. My dad knows how to make people laugh. He's a favorite to everyone he meets, not just because of his accomplishments, but because of the warmth and playfulness he brings wherever he goes. He never forgot where he came from, and it's always been clear that the Croatian spirit, the strength, the loyalty, the love of family has been the foundation of everything he does. Even now, as he faces new challenges, my dad's resilience and unwavering spirit continue to inspire me. Dad, I couldn't be prouder to be your daughter. You've always been my hero, and today you are being recognized for everything I have always known you to be. I love you so much, and I hope you soak in every moment of this celebration. You've earned it 100 times over.
He has indeed earned it. You know, he had a remarkable life, born down in Washington, PA. Ralph was a stud wrestler in high school and an even better football player. As a wrestler, he made it to the heavyweight championship in state. He pushed it to overtime. The only reason he didn't win, he had 2 broken bones in his hand. How in the world do you wrestle with only one hand? He put the title, went all the way a title match in overtime and still won it almost with one hand. And he was a better football player. Those 2 sports earned him a scholarship to Pitt. With the Panthers, he won the NCAA Eastern Heavyweight Championship on the mat. And then in football, man, was he a terrific linebacker. One game against UCLA in his first start, 17 tackles. The next year against Oklahoma, 21 tackles in a game. He was All-American in both of those seasons. Played 4 seasons in the NFL, and when he was down in Houston with the Oilers, began working for a law degree. And that's when he left an indelible mark on the NFL as one of the greatest sports agents in history. I'll tell you, he was so beloved by his clients. His first big name client is here tonight to support him, another fantastic Pitt football player, Outland Trophy winner, 2-time Super Bowl champ, Mark May. Stand up, Mark, and say hi. I love Mark May. You know, those Redskins teams, the offensive line they were named the Hogs. You look at that beautiful face. How could he be called a hog now? Come on. Maybe they were talking about Jeff Bostic. I tease because I know Jeff pretty well. Anyway, so he was such a good negotiator. Kevin's predecessors could probably agree with this. The NFL GMs didn't like to see Ralph coming. Man, let me tell you, they knew they were in for a hard battle when Ralph walked in the door. Bill Fralick, another one of our inductees, I'll talk about Bill in a couple of minutes. Bill was drafted number 2 by the Atlanta Falcons. The great Bruce Smith was drafted number 1 overall by the Buffalo Bills. Guess which player got more money? Ralph's client. Bill Fralick got more money than the number all pick in the draft. Ralph also kind of helped engineer that trade from Herschel Walker from the Dallas Cowboys to the Minnesota Vikings, a handful of players and a whole bunch of draft picks that turned the 90s Cowboys into Super Bowl champions. As a Steeler fan, Ralph, I will never forgive you for making that deal. Cowboys. He got so much money for so many free agents, the USA Today, the newspaper, dubbed him the free agent champ. 2 of his former clients are on video. They want to talk to us now, both familiar to Steeler fans in the audience. And the first one, a free agent Ralph got a buku bucks for.
Hello, my name is James Ferrier, and Ralph Cindrich was my NFL agent for 15 years. We shared a journey through 4 NFL contracts, 2 Super Bowl championships, and a lifetime of joyous memories. I can truly say that you were responsible for changing the projection of my career with one little piece of advice. You told me to take a visit to the Pittsburgh Steelers. You also told me that the ownership was really good and the team would take care of me if I played well. Long story short, I signed with the team and the rest is history. Ralph, you will always have a special place in my heart, and now you will forever be in the Croatian Hall of Fame. I love you, love your family, and I am forever thankful for everything that you've done for me. Thank you and congratulations.
Ralph, Dermonti Dawson here. Hey, I want to congratulate you for your induction to the Croatian Hall of Fame. Hey, a well-deserved honor, and I appreciate everything that you've done for myself and other players. Congratulations again.
Ralph Cindrich, another superior athlete from Western Pennsylvania and a super successful sports agent. Tonight he joins his 5th Hall of Fame, including the Pitt Football Hall of Fame. To accept on his behalf, his son Mike. Mike, come on up here.
Thank you, everyone. It's an honor to accept this award on behalf of my father, Ralph. My father grew up in a small town, Avella, in Western Pennsylvania. He had 4 siblings, and his parents were both the children of immigrants. My grandma, Stella, from Italy, she was actually born on the boat on the way over. My grandfather from Croatia, AJ, first born in the United States. Times weren't always easy. Sometimes they were tough. Tough times mold tough men. And there weren't too many men tougher than Ralph. His childhood pastimes included hunting, fishing, and getting into fights with the kids from the towns next door. When most kids would go to wrestling camp for a week, my father, Ralph, he would go for several weeks in a row. And in between, when one group of kids would leave and another would come in and no one was there, he would hang out with the chefs. You heard the story about how he wrestled with a broken hand, almost won state championship in high school, and I've seen videos. His hand looked like a noodle hanging there. The only reason why he lost is because he got a penalty for using his other hand to hold on to the jersey. Playing football in the NFL, he was used at one point as a wedge breaker on the kickoff, and at one point he smashed all of his bottom teeth through his bottom lips. Yep. He had busted knees, busted ankle, busted shoulder, and lived most of his adult life with all these injuries. And growing up as a child, I never once heard him complain. He was a wrestling and football star in both high school and college. He was recruited all over the United States. He was recruited by Joe Paterno, who wasn't very happy when he ultimately made the decision to stay at home and play for Pitt. I know they exchanged some not so nice words with each other when Pitt was playing Penn State. Unfortunately, my dad's college football career was plagued by injuries, but that didn't stop him from becoming an All-American and ultimately being drafted by the Atlanta Falcons in the 1972 draft. He didn't stay with the Falcons long, ultimately ended up in New England with the Patriots, and in his first season with the Patriots, he was named one week the AP Player of the Week against the Miami Dolphins. He had a short stop in Denver and ultimately finished his NFL career in Houston, where he went to law school, and I was born in Houston while he was at the South Texas College of Law. My dad was a good lawyer, but with his background in sports, he could have been a great agent, and he did become a great agent. And the first agent in the NFL, or one of the first. And one of his first clients joining us tonight, Mark May. By 1985, my dad had some of the top players in the NFL draft. Bill Fralick, who is being honored tonight, was one of them. Al Toon, another. The AP and actually really everyone knew that my dad had a large impact on that draft. His players were determining what players above them were going to ultimately make. And if you hear about Bill Fralick's story, he had a groundbreaking contract that ultimately paid him $150,000 a year for life. He was paid more than the top pick in that draft, which was Bruce Smith. The next decade saw my father negotiating some of the most lucrative deals in the NFL. The Associated Press twice named him one of the top 100 most powerful people in all of sports. You ever heard of The Blind Side? The book, and that ultimately was turned into a movie? That story in part was based on my father and what he did for NFL linemen. You see, before my father got involved with representing players in the NFL, they only cared about quarterbacks and receivers. But who was protecting that quarterback? It was the lineman. And Will Woodford was one lineman who had a contract that was never seen at that time by offensive linemen. One time my father almost came to blows with the coach of an NFL team. One time he brought Bruno Sammartino into his office when a manager was coming in to negotiate a contract. Yeah, they wanted the manager to think that his client was potentially going to go to professional wrestling. They got the money for him. There's all kinds of stories. I could sit here for probably hours and tell you stories that my dad has told me over the years, but if you really want to hear him, he has a book, NFL Brawler. Go buy it. I'm sure a lot of you have seen Jerry Maguire. Well, that really embodies what my father was as an agent. His clients weren't just a number to him, weren't just someone that he was going to make money off of. These were his friends. And as you can tell by the people that have spoken tonight, Mark being here, James Ferrier used to come to our house every Christmas Eve. We'd have a Christmas Eve party. And sometimes he'd bring the other players. I remember one year we beat the Browns on Christmas Eve, and he brought Casey Hampton and a bunch of other guys. And I can tell you what, we didn't have any leftovers after that Christmas Eve. We would go to the Pro Bowl with Mark May and his family, Al Toon and his family, other players. Mark took me in the locker room after the Redskins beat the Broncos in the Super Bowl in San Diego in the late 80s. As a young kid, I got to experience what it's like to be in the Super Bowl winning team's locker room. It was quite an experience. Jermani Dawson, who you heard from, I went deer hunting with him on my grandpa's farm out in Cross Creek. So this is how I grew up, and this is the relationship my father had with his clients. They weren't just clients, they were friends, they were family, and they still are. My father would probably tell you that his greatest accomplishment was marrying my mother. Sorry. Marrying my mother and starting a family. You heard from my sister. Well, my father was my midget football coach. When I played baseball, he'd take me to the field and hit baseballs to me. And even though he was always busy with work, he would never miss a game. He would never miss one of his kids' events. And that says a lot about who he was as a person and who he is. He's always been proud of his Italian and Croatian heritage. When I was a child, I went with my family, my grandma Stella, my grandfather AJ. We went on a trip to Europe. Went to Italy, and we also went to the old country in Croatia. And I got to meet my family outside of Zagreb. One of the things my father was doing there at the time was trying to get an NFL game in Yugoslavia. It was Yugoslavia at the time. With the permission of the Roonies, he was negotiating a game, but unfortunately, the Civil War broke out, and that NFL game never happened. My father is extremely honored to accept this award today, and I'm honored to accept it on his behalf. Growing up, he liked to recite poems, memorize and recite poems. And so I'm going to recite the end of a poem that we used to hear as a child, and it really represents who he is as a person, because he paved his own way. He was one of the first agents, and he did it at a time when players needed it. And this poem is The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. And what I'm going to leave you with are the final lines of that poem. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Thank you.
Plenty of these around the house. As a Steeler fan, you can always use another one. Thank you, Mike. Congratulations, Ralph. Love Ralph Cindrich, by the way. Anybody who's met him loves Ralph Cindrich.